What exactly did Jesus look like, both as a child and then as an adult? It's a question that's been asked for centuries. An Italian scientific team decided to look into it, using the latest technology.
Hello noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and today we are talking again about Jesus. As you know, I've got a series dedicated to Jesus of Nazareth. Here are the other 3 videos. If you haven't checked them out, you'll find links in the description box. I believe the question, what did Jesus look like, may be rather interesting whether you're a Christian or not, and that is because it can have some implications. But I'd like to show you a sort of pattern that sometimes happens when we use the wrong approach. So one video is called Italian Police Reveal What Jesus Looked Like as a Young Boy. The main video, however, which is the one that we're going to review today, is called What Did Jesus Look Like? Italian Police Used the Holy Shroud to Develop Facial Image.
The team used the Holy Shroud as a starting point to try and depict Jesus' appearance.
Now, as a basis of their experiment, the Italian police used what is called the Shroud of Turin, a length of linen cloth bearing the negative image of a man. Now, of course, to give this test any credibility or validity, one would have to begin from the assumption that the shroud is in fact authentic and not a fake. Simply because logically, if the shroud is a medieval fake, then any image that we recreate using it would also be a fake. Now, whether you believe the shroud to be authentic or not, it definitely is a question that would require its own video, which I'm working on. So I will leave the topic, is the shroud authentic or is it a medieval fake, for a video soon to be released on the Metatron's channel. And if you're yet not a member of this community, become a noble one. Subscribe to my channel for more content from the Metatron. Okay, so the Italian police used the shroud as the basis, but what did they do? How did they come up with this image of Jesus' face?
One of the tasks this police department carries out quite often is facial reconstruction. So everything from describing facial features to comparing them. This is our starting point. So we used the Holy Shroud as our base and went from there.
So basically the Italian police used the same facial recognition software that they use for missing people, or perhaps I suppose wanted people. They used it on the image of the shroud and they came up with their image. Okay, but what else?
From the shroud, the team gathered all types of information, from the shape of the eyebrows and lips to nose features. From there, so-called non-verifiable elements were added on, like eye and hair color.
And I'd like to add skin color.
These techniques are used to find criminals or to develop hypotheses on what an adult could look like if he or she disappeared as a child.
Okay, so the techniques are interesting, but here's the thing. The kicker is non-verifiable elements. Okay, so let's see what they added in.
The image of an adult man who resembles the facial features of Christ was used to turn back the clock.
How can there be so much to say from a 1 minute and 21 seconds video? Now, unfortunately, they made it very clear on the video that you are not supposed to use anything, so their images, without their consent, which of course they're never gonna give. So I'd like you to now pause this video and go check in the link in the description this 1 minute and 21 seconds video that I'm responding to, or maybe just look at the image and then we can talk. Link in the description. I'll wait for you. The non-verifiable elements that they went with was light-colored eyes, seems blue or light grey, looks more blue, light brown hair, and very white European-looking skin. Why do I have a problem with this? I believe the most scientific and logical way to approach non-verifiable elements is the approach by likelihood. We don't know the complexion of this man, eyes and hair. Let's try and guess the most plausible and probable depending on where he was from and when he was from. But oh no, they decided to go with the colors that they were more comfortable with being Italian, and this is coming from an Italian. As I have talked in details on my dedicated video, as Europeans we are used to the image of Jesus as a white European looking man. That's what we were brought up with. This is something that we Europeans have been doing for a very long time. If you look at the very first images of Jesus in Rome, he looked like a Roman with short hair and no beard. That is because what they were trying to do is that they were trying to push him onto the people, and the people were more comfortable with an image that they could identify with. And then as time progresses, the image image of Jesus looks more like a Roman god, like a young Apollo, and then as he becomes more of a all-powerful father god, then he starts looking more like Jupiter. If this was a serious approach, they should have put aside as much as possible the image that as Italians we are more comfortable with, and they should have tried to go and study and look at how people looked in Roman Judea in the 1st century. Now that's interesting because oftentimes in the comments of such videos you find people saying he would look like a Jew today. Dude, he looks how the Middle Eastern people look today. And no, he wouldn't, because Jews today don't look exactly like the Jews did back in the day. So what did a Jew look like at the time of Jesus? The most common Jew of the time would have had brown hair, brown eyes, and olive skin. With that being said, I think what's really interesting is what people say in the comments, so let's go check the comment section together. Great work, incredible, literally. And once again, Jesus is portrayed as a European white male with apparently grey eyes, LMAO. Jesus lost his ethnicity for the benefit of those in power. That is, yeah. I thought the Shroud of Turin was a 13th century creation. That sounds like a Lord of the Ring dwarven city, doesn't it? I really love these images of Jesus. Is there a link to download them from somewhere? Full screen function print? I had a dream last summer. He looked almost 100% like this, but glowing white. How can you be more white than that? I don't know. The Bible says his hair was like wool, feet like bronze. It doesn't matter. Jesus isn't a human, he's a God, Alpha and Omega, no beginning, no end. God sacrifices his only and then he goes into the preaching. Now this happens so often in the comment section of my videos about Jesus. People start by saying he had hair like wool, his skin was bronze, so he looked like an African, but it doesn't matter. I'm sorry, but if it doesn't matter, then why are you saying this? And you're trying to push this interpretation that is wrong, because I do say that it's wrong when we white people push our whiteness everywhere, but I also say it's wrong the other way around. I don't care. I just say it's wrong when it's wrong. And the interpretation that the specific biblical verse that is now quoted in Revelations, the hair like wool, skin of bronze is mentioned, is used to say that Jesus was black. He wasn't. That is such a wrong interpretation of those verses, and I have translated those verses word by word from Greek with 2 experts, and it does not say that their hair had the consistency of wool. It just say that it was white as wool, and then it repeats, yes, white as snow, so it's specifically talking about the color of the hair, and we have compared this with the usage of the same words and terminology into all sorts of Greek philosophy and literature. That expression is never used to mean the texture, it's only used to mean color. And when it comes to the skin of bronze, it specifically talks about bronze melting in a furnace, which looks like this. Now clearly that is not a representation of how Jesus looked, meaning historical Jesus as he walked the earth. It's talking about a resurrected being, so it has nothing to do with his appearance or ethnicity. If people quote this verse to you, tell them go study Greek. And yes, of course, people told me, what do you mean Greek? The Bible was written in Hebrew, not the New Testament. We have to admit we don't actually know what the guy looked like. I have seen several reconstructions and they look like different people. Yeah, sure, yeah, we don't know what he looked like, but we can still make an educated guess. There are some factors that I am going to mention as soon as we finish reading the comments that I strongly believe can help us pinpoint at least some of these uncertain elements and know with a certain degree of certainty what they were. Doesn't look like hair like sheep's wool and skin of burnt copper. Neither does the skin of any human on this planet. LMAO, a 12-year-old boy? Well, at one point Jesus would have been a 12-year-old. Stop pretending we all know Revelation 1:14. Stop. Maybe you stop and find someone who reads Greek. He's black. I saw God's toes. Brown, dark brown, saddles across. What language are you using? That's not... Oh my gosh. Jesus wasn't black, white, green, red, blue. Jesus is black. White people didn't exist when Jesus was living. Yeah, what about the Romans? Jesus had woolly hair. Okay, on to the details I wanted to tell you about. Using the Gospels as a basis on what he might have looked like, there are a few things that we could consider to be maybe hidden hints. What happened when Judas betrayed him? Well, Jesus was together with his disciples, and then Judas, accompanied by some Roman soldiers, reached the location. So when the soldiers asked, "Who is Yeshua, so we may arrest him?" what did Judas do? The famous kiss of Judas. Here's the thing. If Jesus looked white, blonde, and with blue eyes, why would there be a need for a kiss? Why couldn't Judas just tell the Roman soldiers, the blonde guy? the white guy, the one who looks like a Gentile. So this already tells us that most likely Jesus looked like everyone else in the area, but neither did he look like an African from Congo. But it also tells us that most likely he looked like his apostles, his disciples. Or maybe it would be better to phrase it, considering the fact that we're talking about a religion, it was his disciples that looked like him. Now we do know that the regular Judean of the time would have had olive skin, mostly shortish hair, brown, and a beard. That was the typical appearance of a Jewish man. And that is something that people used to underline the fact that definitely Jesus did not have long hair. And then they pair it with the idea of some verses in the Bible that say that men with long hair, well, we should be ashamed, it's a horrible thing. Let me debunk this. One of the things we know is that Jesus did not care about his appearance, and neither did he care about what other people thought of the way he looked. He made it very clear in his teachings, to the point of actually going as far as making an example of those people that would care about their appearance so much that they would just go to the square and public places showing off their expensive tunics. But most likely a man who disdained people that cared so much about their outer appearance probably didn't care much about being groomed, following the current fashion of the time. So expecting that Jesus cut his hair short because everyone else did, and trimming his beard and looking always flashy, just doesn't suit. Maybe not as long as mine, but a longish hair and a little uncultivated beard is very probable for him. And just like it happens in a lot of situations that have to do with authoritative people or very charismatic people, his disciples most likely followed his example. And that is why Judas couldn't find one identifying factor. So how do I answer then the people that say, oh, but Paul says that long hair is a shame for men? I think the problem is rooted with the fact that people think of the Bible as one single book. The Bible is not one single book. It's a collection of many books written by many different people over centuries of distance. And the specific passage that people talk about is in the epistles of Paul. Paul was a Roman. What do I mean by that? Well, Paul was born in the Roman province of Cilicia or Cilicia, which would be where modern-day Turkey is, the southern Mediterranean coast of Turkey. He was a Greek-speaking Jew who had Roman citizenship by birth. What did the Romans think about men with long hair? Barbaric. You don't think that Paul's culture and upbringing, even though he was a Jew, he was still a Roman, he was very proud of it. And why wouldn't it be? It was very pricey to become a Roman citizen if you weren't one by birth, and he used it several times, at least if we are to believe the accounts. You don't think that part of that Roman upbringing and culture got into his head? I mean, even today, how many Christians are in fact influenced by their own culture? Don't tell me that an American Christian, a German Christian, an Italian Christian, a Middle Eastern Christian, and an African Christian all think the exact same way, because they don't. As a Roman by birth, shouldn't surprise us that he didn't like men with long hair. But also, that specific passage does not speak for the entirety of the Bible, and it certainly does not speak for how people felt in Roman Judea. What does speak for the actual Hebrews when it comes to long hair and men is the thousands of years of tradition that we read in the Bible, it being a book written in the Bronze Age. Look at the story of Samson, how his long hair was a connection to God, in fact an alliance. It set him aside as someone who was following the law of God in a much higher way than common people. And the moment his hair was cut, he lost his strength and power. And similarly, even in the times of the New Testament, you've got Nazarites. Now, we don't know if Jesus himself was a Nazarite. Some people say maybe, some people say definitely not. There still was this connection in Jerusalem and Roman Judea between long hair in men and a special covenant with God. In fact, the Nazarite wouldn't drink wine, the Nazarite would let their hair grow, and then after a certain period of time, sometimes it could be 3 years, they would cut it and offer their long hair to God. That's not a culture that shames men with long hair. That's in fact a culture that has a very specific meaning and message connected to long hair and men. Given, if Jesus wasn't a Nazarite and he let his hair grow very long, the high priests would have hated him. And on the other hand, if Jesus was a Nazarite and therefore let his hair grow, he was drinking wine. So in that case, high priests would have hated him too. Guess what? The high priests hated him. Let's remember that it's the Jews that wanted him dead. The Romans just executed him. Now, this doesn't of course prove that Jesus had necessarily long hair, but it does suggest that he did look a lot like his disciples and that he definitely didn't stand out as a foreigner. He did not look like a white European, but neither did he look like an African from Congo, because both would have stood out significantly in 1st century Roman Judea. Alright, noble ones, but let me know what you think in the comments below. If you liked this video, well, I'm sure you're gonna like the next episode on the Shroud of Turin. And if you're not yet members of this community, become a noble one. Subscribe to my channel for more content from the Metatron. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.